All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to class today. I think we have some business to attend to before we get started with what we're going to be dealing with. So you can go ahead. I think that for those who may have checked before, the link is already there in Schoology. So you can go ahead and just upload that little thing we had. All right. We said that you could bring it to class today, and we are sticking to our word. So you should see transient assignment due today, October 5 at 4:10. So go ahead and just scan and upload for me, please. All right, and then we'll get started. All right, so I'll allow you 10 minutes to get that done, all right? All right, students, I just checked the portal and I see that I'm basically wasting your time because you guys have been so good in terms of submitting your work. So let's move on then, eh? And I consider this progress. Very good. I mean, it's important that we recognize that we can't be on time unless we are ahead of time. Eh? All right, so today, oh, by the way, before I get on with today's work, having gone through that exercise, would you now agree that this is one of the easier topics? I remember I got a lot of remonstration from Mr. Hope et al. I don't know what his views are. He has gone through the exercise.
I've gone through it, sir. I'm not going to say it's easy yet. It's just time consuming and knowing exactly what to do. It seems fun, but I have yet to decide.
Fair enough. I appreciate your honesty. All right. So today we're going to talk about load dynamics. We're going to talk a little about, generation dispatch, just how we go about making decisions regarding generators, getting generators online. And we'll talk a little about reserve margins, etc. This would be the introductory part of generation management. Yeah, so we're going to have some basic discussions today. All right. I found this earlier today and I thought it was so appropriate. So I replaced my previous statement with this one, or my previous bit of encouragement with this one. The only thing that overcomes hard luck is hard work. I think I've been consistent in preaching this message, so it wouldn't come as a surprise that I found this one to be quite appropriate. So we're talking about generation planning, right? And this is going to be, I'm telling you up front, it's going to be one of the major parts of your project, all right? And hopefully I can post that project by tomorrow, yeah? But generation planning is going to be a major part of it. So let's talk about the electrical power system. We have looked at the basic structure. We've talked about generation. We talk about transmission and distribution. And we looked at the various voltages that are used, etc., etc., etc. In your labs, you have looked at the parameters. You have looked at different aspects of the operation. You have been exposed to the power software package. And that will put all of what you have done so far, including what we'll do today, will put you in good stead to complete that project. So I want you to ensure that even if, because we expect, we are not naive, we expect that you will seek guidance from each other, you seek help from each other. But even when you do that, it is important that having sought the help, that you spend time understanding what you end up doing. So even with the labs, if somebody help you with the lab, you're in groups of two, one person may be better with the computer, that sort of thing. Even in those circumstances, ensure that although you're being assisted, that you spend time ensuring that you understand how to use the package. All right, and that is what we will explore in the oral examination for your labs. All right, so let's come back now to this whole business of generation planning. There are so many things that I need to talk to you about before we get started. So let me pause this. Let me pause the sharing for a moment. Let me pause the sharing for a moment. Let's pause that. All right. I want to talk to you about the course outline, the module outline that I have given you. I'm assuming that you have looked at it. Yes, I'm assuming you have looked at it. If you have, there may be things that you may consider, a little overbearing. So I'm giving you an opportunity as a group to make one adjustment, just one. Mark, you wouldn't have had time to talk about it before, no, but let's see where the common concern may lie. But I'm giving you an opportunity to make one adjustment to the module outline as given that you think would make your life easier and your navigation through this module much easier. So the floor is yours. I'm giving you that opportunity. See, all right, what we miss already not important, all right? I hope. Thank you, Mr. Hope. All right, so we have to ensure that, the customer's demand is met at all times. So they vary. They're going to vary. People are going to turn on loads. If you check your own electricity bill for those who pay bills, right? I guarantee you that you will not see the same monthly consumption month to month. It's going to vary by a few kilowatt hours. Well, now, if your usage was consistent right throughout each month, then GPS wouldn't have a problem. But that variation on a daily basis, an hour-to-hour basis, 30-minute to 30-minute basis, is going to impact this whole balancing act as far as the utility company is concerned. All right. And so we also have to look at what we call, the whole business of load dynamics. The utilities simply can't determine, or should I say, accurately determine what load is going to be supplied. However, based on observation over time, they have a general, a fairly good idea as what the overall demand will look like. And so they can determine what the daily, possibly monthly, and possibly annual demand will look like. And that will dictate how they treat with their generation. So on a daily basis, the question is, when are we going to see a peak? When is it going to level out? Do we see another peak? That sort of thing, right? And that daily pattern is also built into what they expect during a particular month. So they know that in Jamaica, this was the situation years ago. We had really distinct, we don't have snow, but the seasons in Jamaica were a lot more distinct. And so you expected as a utility to see significant demand in terms of load during the summer. So during the day, you expect that demand because people are cooling down with air conditioning and that sort of thing. Today, I suppose Christmas is as hot as summer. Yeah? So things have changed. Right? But at the same time, the utility company also recognizes that, during the months of like March, April, May is when they are seeing, lower demands on their system. So usually they would say, okay, this is the period where we're going to schedule some maintenance activities. If you have large consumers who possibly would have been generating their own power, if they are going to come offline, whether for maintenance purposes, it is important that they inform the utility company so they can then make the necessary arrangements to supply that additional power. All right. So in terms of the loads, we have to understand, the whole load dynamics. And this comes about as a result of us forecasting. Yes, we want to forecast these loads, as I said before, based on short or medium or long term. You would have, I am assuming, you would have heard of the fire at Jamalco, which damaged their power plant. And I use that as reference because you would have noted, the forecasted time or date for them getting back online is some 18 to 24 months. That is to get a powerhouse that is not, has had significant damage, but is not totally damaged. So I want you to put that in the context of what it would then take for a long-term forecast to bring in new generation. So it's not a 2-year thing. We're talking about 3-4 years, depending, of course, on the type of generation that we are bringing in. If you are just, going to bring in a turnkey operation where you get an IC internal combustion engine and, stick it somewhere, it may not take you so long. But then if you're looking at developing a wind farm, it may take you a few more years than that. Right? Solar farm, a little easier. So it comes back to the type of generation, but things have changed. And you now have to be looking at what is happening as far as the economy is concerned. So folks, the econ that you're doing, it actually has value, and sometimes us engineers just believe that we want all the money. And I've said it to you. Well, I don't know if I've said it to you before, but any fool can solve any problem if he had all the available resources. But it takes someone with expertise to use resources in an efficient way to achieve certain outcomes. You with me? And that's where your training comes in. So we're talking about long-term forecasts, which is looking at the future, several years down the road. Good. And the growth in electricity demand is usually an indication that your economy is growing. And I submit to you that Jamaica's peak demand has moved from around 500 and odd megawatts. It is now, the last time I checked, it was about 640, somewhere there. It may have gone up a little more. But that has taken almost a decade to get to that point, almost 2 decades, come to think of it, because the 550 was about 2,000 little bit, right? So long-term forecasting, we're talking about system expansion, financing, how we're going to finance, the new generation. When Mirant came and, they put up the bulk plan, that was quick. It was quick, and they were using, because of how our electricity system is structured, they were able to utilize. Well, yes, it's a combined cycle, and that system is among the more efficient in terms of electricity generation, but it is efficient and cost effective to the extent that you are using very cheap fossil fuel, which would have been natural gas being fed from a gas field. Not what was done in 2004, which was 2 diesel units whose exhaust was supplying a steam unit. Thankfully, that has changed, and we're now using LNG for those 2 facilities, those two turbines. But the point I'm making is that we were able to make those changes quickly because of the technology that we opted to use. Yes, this one continues to resonate with me because back in the 1980s, and yes, folks, I've been around that long. Back in the 1980s, Jamaica was well down the road in terms of exploring OTEC. That's ocean thermal energy conversion. Yes, that's using the heat differential between the surface of the ocean and lower down to generate electricity. Jamaica was well on the road with that. But what happened? We then decided that getting that facility down by Rockfort, we just float it in from wherever, and we hook it up, and we have electricity. Back then, it was a necessity. I understand that it was a necessity, but we have put on the back burner our OTEC potential, the same thing that provides the energy for our wonderful hurricanes. Yes, that same energy, warm seawater in the Caribbean. And when you get off here, just go on Google and type in OTEC and look at OTEC maps. And what you will see is that the Caribbean has one of the highest OTEC potentials in the world. But again, because of the technology that we engaged in, yes, with the facility at Rockfort that was brought in, we got hooked up, we had electricity. We're in a crisis because for those who were around, I know none of you were around, yes, well, I'm not going to call him name, maybe only one person in the group, right, Mr. Freighter? But anyway, you may not even have known what was happening as a young boy in short pants at the time. But all we used to hear is that B6, 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 B6. Because B6, once B6 collapsed or break down, half of the country was out of power. You with me? So that's where we're coming from. And we needed to change all of that. So government decided to go and sell JPS and all of that jazz. We went to Mirant, we got some generation, and we have been improving. So I want us to, as electrical engineers, not get caught up in some of the discussions about JPS. We need to understand it from a technical standpoint and the fact that to provide the electrical energy, some of the decisions that have had to be made over the years. Yes? And so we need to be planning, long-term planning. You need long lead time to get all the generating and the transmission and distribution facilities installed. We now have, and again, if you are interested, you make contact with the Ministry of Energy, Science and Technology, Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, MSET, and try and get access to the 20-year plan. I mean, we are trying to make it, we are trying to destroy the plan even before it is implemented, but it is a 20-year plan, 2018 to 2038. It's a generation plan. It's known as the IRP, right? get access to that integrated resource plan. Get access to it and see what it has to say in terms of the expectations or the plans for generation, right? Long term. So we're talking about 20 years for the IRP. It looks at generating plants that we need to retire. It looks at the use of wind, solar, oh God, that one slips me. But anyway, the use of garbage. I forgot what the appropriate name is. But the fact is, we're looking at this plan over a 20-year horizon. And as engineers, if you are going to be focusing on the power area, these are things you need to appreciate and therefore position yourself properly to make use or to be part of the changing landscape where electrical energy is concerned. All right. Short-term forecast, usually, within the hour. JPS now runs what we call load flows, which is what you would have done in your lab. That same thing when you say, where you press calculate, yes, in your lab, or solve. When you say that you solve in the program, all you're doing is running a load flow, which is what JPS will be doing every 30 minutes. That's a standard. So they are looking at the system. They are looking at how the load is changing. They are looking at whether or not the generation is meeting the demand. If the demand is creeping up too much, then they may need to dispatch additional generation, right? Medium-term forecasts can be looked at, hourly or peak load forecasts. So, we want to see, okay, what will be the load demand given that World Cup football is coming up, right? I tell every year I tell students this. Yeah? There was an almost collapse. I tell them the story because it is something that is real. You can go and read it read it. There was an almost collapse of that World Cup where oh God, I'm getting young, David Beckham. You remember when David Beckham missed that penalty for England? When he missed that penalty, yes, the UK grid. Huh? That sounds so vivid.
Can't forget that, sir.
The grid in England almost collapsed. And people were wondering what happened. When they checked it out, now for those who are around British people, and it is true, they may not drink a lot of tea, but they drink a lot of, they may not drink a lot of tea anymore, but they drink a lot of hot beverages. So they have tea and coffee, whole heap of hot beverages. The thing, however, is that they use electric kettles. And when he missed that penalty, it caught the grid operators by surprise because it's as if everybody collectively hissed their teeth and went to their kitchen and plugged in their kettle to make a cup of tea. And the demand on the grid shot up and almost overshoot their reserve margin, right? So whatever is happening in your country, in your society, is actually reflected by your energy demand. And so when I mentioned the fact that we move from peak demands of 550 to 640 over a 10, 20-year period, that's not saying anything good for us. Because there are others in the Caribbean, instead of talking about megawatts, they're talking about gigawatts. Of course, they have a larger industrial base with half the population. But we're not going to talk about them. We know that we'll get there soon. And you are going to be part of the vehicle that will get to that place. All right? So in terms of short and medium term forecasts, they use for operational planning. As I mentioned, seasonal planning, you know when you can take out a generating unit for service. You know when you can take out a particular line or a particular substation or for service. Yes. On a daily basis, you're going to have an idea as to which generating units you need to bring on when, to meet the demand. Some of the factors that's going to affect short-term forecasting: weather. A day like today, the utility would not necessarily see the sort of demand that they would have seen yesterday, because not many persons will be using AC today. And so adjustments would have to be made in terms of generation dispatch. Come back now again to historical pattern, and I'm going to show you one that's quite surprising. Well, not really surprising, but quite telling. So in terms of temperature, the days are hot. I was shocked on Saturday, driving down, going out into the country. I saw 38 degrees. You listen to weather, them tell you about the maximum in Kingston and the maximum out west, 34 and 35. But we're hitting some 38 and 39 degrees. People are uncomfortable. They are going to go for their air conditioning, even at the risk of what the bill is going to look like at the end of the month. The company has to plan for that. You with me? All right. So it's a guessing game in terms of what the demand will be. But that guess has to have some basis. That guess has to have, there has to be some sense applied to that guess. Yeah? So we have to look at which unit are we going to schedule? Which ones will we turn on? When will we turn them on? Based on the units that we're using and the time horizon, this is where medium forecasting, and the time horizon that we're looking at, we have to schedule fuel purchases because it's going to cost us money to store the fuel. Yes. Do we want to be storing fuel? Do we want to be, getting fuel just in time, when it reached down to quarter tank? Yes. I suppose you don't want to do, run the same risk with a diesel vehicle that you do a petrol vehicle. Yes. So you make sure you fill up once you see that it can only take you 60 kilometers further. But for the gas, you'll go down to 20 and 15. No, I wouldn't recommend that. But anyway, in the same way, you have to manage fuel purchases. Whether or not you need to get new generation. Of course, I said earlier that we now have an IRP, which is done by the ministry. In the past, the resource plan, in terms of the generation plan, would have been done by the utility company. That now has changed in Jamaica, right? Where since 2015, under the new Electricity Act, yes, we now have the Ministry of Energy in charge of generation forecasting. All right. So those are little nuggets I'm giving you. I hope you may be making some not jottings and not just wait on the recording. All right. So if you then get into the planning area for the utility, you need to understand that whether it is short, medium, or long term, it's going to impact the viability of the utility company. Because as I said, we can solve any problem. We could solve the generation provision problem by running the most expensive unit. But here on Jamaica, we know that there is a pass-through of fuel cost to the consumer. Yes, so that beautiful line item on your JPSCO bill, which says fuel and IPP charges. Now, if that was not managed, it means that whatever fuel source they use to supply the electricity, that will be reflected on your bill. And many persons, I hear the argument, and I would want you as persons who have at least sat in my class to enter these discussions from a more informed position. Where you hear people say, why, the bill now go down no matter what I do. I want you to know, understanding that over 60% of the bill is fuel and IPP, right? And that is based on the actual cost of the fuel. So now that we see our oil prices going up again, yes, you may reduce your consumption, but because the cost of fuel is going up, the bill might look the same. So, in having that discussion with your family members, you want to bring some amount of engineering intelligence, so to speak, to the discussion. All right? Okay. Any questions or comments? I've been rattling on for about 30 minutes. I don't know how many persons start sleep early. All right? Any questions or comments? No, sir. Every time this...
Sir, I checked the document. Sir, I checked the document that you told us about a while ago. And I see where they're saying that the Hunts Bay B6 is supposed to retire. It was supposed to be retired last year, 2020, sir.
It is.
It is retired?
Yes. If you go there now, the powerhouse is all sort of holes in it, mothballed.
Okay, sir.
We don't depend on B6 anymore. All right. But I don't want you to be distracted by that document, Mr. Hard. You need to all right. So look at it after. Any other comments?
Yes, sir. I want to ask a question.
Yeah, Mr. Clark.
Since a couple of years ago, the country has been investing in solar technology and renewables. So, and we mentioned earlier about how quickly the renewables can drop off the system.
Yeah.
How does that affect the rest of the generation?
All right. Good question. Excellent question. Let's not start with solar. Let me start with the wind plants. A few years ago, a number of customers in areas such as Manchester and St. Elizabeth, they were experiencing a lot of power outages, right? Frequent power outages. And what was happening is that when the Wigton facility up there in Spurtree, well, not really Spurtree, but anyway, Wigton. When Wigton would drop off, because you were now having loss of generation, then people would have power outages. What JPSCO has done so far, and the document that Mr. Hall has found, the IRP, the requirement going forward is that once you intend to build or invest in facilities such as solar, you must also put in storage. So similar to a home facility, if you have the batteries there and the sun gets a nice cloud cover, you will still have power, but it will now be coming from the batteries, yeah, or whatever other storage facility you are using. So that is what is now assisting the grid, because there's now a lot of storage built in. So the variation in output from the facilities will not immediately impact the network. So it would then allow the grid operator, which in this instance is JPSCo, it would give them some time to bring other generation onto the system if indeed the renewables start to fail. You with me?
Yes, sir. Based on what you explained a minute ago, sir, I'm not saying you're saying it, but is JP saying it's better for you to have, you say you must have some form of storage, to have storage or grid tie? Is there
don't
Okay.
misunderstand here. We're talking about utility, solar. So grid tie is about more a customer. You with me? So
Yes,
when we
sir.
talk about utility renewables, they obviously are in the grid. Yes, but the facility also has storage. So if you drop the 20 odd megawatts from content, if you get nice cover, you could easily have 16 megawatts coming at you into the grid, and you get cloud, and that 16 drops to 2 megawatts. What we are saying, or what the company, and let me correct another thing, it is not the company that is requiring it now. The IRP is coming from the ministry. So the shift in terms of generation planning has moved from the company to the ministry. So if a generator or if a company wishes to enter the generation market and they are coming in with renewables, they'll have to come also with storage.
Get it, sir. Thanks.
All right, so what we have before us is a daily load curve. And we just want to talk briefly about this load curve, make sure we understand it. So you see some things noted there, and note, this is the 550, and I said this was in 2001, all right? And we know that we are at 649. The curve looks the same, all right? Looks quite similar. So this red line that you are seeing there is the daily demand. And the demand is highlighting our activities as people, believe it or not. So let me explain what is happening. Now, I want you to look at this section of the curve. Let me start with one of the easier ones, all right? Look at that section of the curve where the dip is. What time are the days that coinciding with?
When people leave work, sir.
When people leave work,
Or
I reach
5
home.
o'clock drive
So
time.
you see it, all right? So the offices and the businesses are closing. So people are now leaving work, right? Heading home. So the demand falls. Right? Now, I want to look at this point to this point. Where do you think happened at about 6 o'clock?
People
What's it-
reach home.
what-
And turn on TV, light,
News
everything.
time.
All right. Now, that is part of it.
You know,
But
start
one of the most significant demand at this point, I'm giving somebody else another shot at it. Tell me another significant demand that occurs at that point.
All the lights and street lights.
Street lights. Street lights. Right? This is about street lighting. And for those who are in the business, you know that street lighting is at rate 60. So you have rate 50, which are industrial facilities. They are trying to cut out rate 40, but they still exist. And those will be commercial. Rate 50 is industrial, but rate 60, those are street lights. The biggest demand on the system, or one of, you know, the biggest customer was NWC. But anyway, so street lighting. So you get that peak demand, which is also coupled with persons reaching home and everybody turning on them lights. Now, there's a clause in the new JPSCO tariff structure. And I know a lot of persons quarrel about it, or them get vexed about it. But if you think about it, it really can make your life easy. It is called TOU, time of use. That's a clause. What does this mean? It means that if you look now, let me clear all of this ink. If you look at these areas here, yes, this is from midnight. Well, I may have gone a little far. Let's say midnight to about 5 o'clock. That's the lowest demand that you'll have. And by the way, you realize that this point here, that is what, 3, 4 o'clock? You know what happened? You know why that is like that in Jamaica? This is not a good sign, you know, but you know why that is happening? Because obviously the street lights are still on, you agree?
Yes, sir.
So what do you think happening at that point?
The street lights are turning off.
No, man, street light not turn off at 4:30. We still have street light, man. What do you think happening there?
Most persons' appliances are off.
Go again?
I was saying that during that time, most persons' appliances are off, or most persons are not up, was it?
Well, we don't get up yet, but the point is, note carefully, gentlemen and ladies. It is declining. So if it's declining, it's telling you that certain loads are coming off the system. But obviously, it's not street light. Unfortunately, because we party so much in Jamaica, this is a decline in load in terms of certain operations. And this is no productive operation. Party just done. And it is during these periods from the 11 to about 4, no, it's 11. No, let me be careful. It's 12 to 6 that you have the cheapest electricity on the grid. Anybody want to hazard a guess as to why that is the case? Why is it that that would be the cheapest period?
Because they're trying to encourage usage during that period to bring up back the.
No, man, you're not encouraging, you know. I'm saying, why you think it would be the cheapest? You are encouraging people to use it when it is the cheapest. But I'm saying, why is it the cheapest? Yes, Mr. Duncan.
Sir, at that time, since the load is so low, they wouldn't have to bring on the expensive units that, you know, to keep up with the extra load. So because of that, they would be spending less to produce power at that time. But that only applies to really major businesses, though.
But the fact that they don't have to bring on load, what else could that suggest? They won't have to bring on expensive generation. What else could that suggest? We're going to deal with it, you know, don't worry. But I just want to.
That's something to do with that spinning reserve.
Sure.
Not exactly. All right.
So will it be the time when you're going to work on that time?
No, man, we're not going to work 1:30, Mr. Green. Well, then again, depending on the type of work you're going to do. Yeah. But the correct answer.
To 6.
Huh?
No, wasn't the 5 a.m.
Oh, we're talking about from 12 o'clock all the way down, man. We said that is the cheapest period. And that is what JPSCO wants to shift some of us to use because it is cheap. And the reason it's cheap, is that there's something I'm going to define, and it is known as base load. Right? I don't want to touch that. There's a level of load, or level of generation below which the generation will never fall. That is known as base load generation. So your base load generation is here. Yes? This is your base load, so it will never fall below that. The base load generation is here. You know that it is flat. You know it is flat from here all the way up here. By the way, each step that you see means that you're adding generation. Right? So each of these steps means that you're adding generation. Here, you're taking off generation, you're adding. Right? So between here and here, it is flat. Which means that even though you see the generation, the load falling, this generation is flat. This is known as base load generation. So it is generation below which the system does not go. All right? Now, it means that you're going to have all this capacity. And that base load generation is usually supplied by your steam units. I want you to think about it, and let me give you a crazy example. Have you ever boiled some water? Put on a kettle, boil some water. Water boil, you take off the kettle. And you just take it off right away. You take it off, and somebody came out and said, put on the kettle for me. And you put it back immediately and turn on the fire. You realize that it doesn't start steaming immediately. Anybody ever happened to you? Anybody? Well, you all know why the kitchen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Same thing that would happen if you were to shut down a steam unit. So let me give you another example from a electricity standpoint, electrical standpoint. We have had all island blackouts, and the generator shut down, but 6 hours later, 3 hours later, you can't get back electricity. Have you ever wondered why? The fact is, even though the generators just trip, apart from the fact that they need to bring them on in a particular sequence, because if you just turn them back on with the same load on the system, you might trip them again. But apart from that, so we do have generation sequencing to consider. But especially your steam units, once they have tripped offline, you can't just bring them back online immediately. Just like when you just take off the kettle and put it on, it will start boil up immediately, even though it was screaming 20 seconds ago. So these units are known as your base load units or your base generation units. Yes? And so at this time of the night or the morning, the utility company wants you to use up this excess capacity because whether or not you're up, they still have to produce it because they can't turn off these units because those are their base units. If they have run off the river hydro plants, they can't stop the water. The river have to run. That's where they go. So they want you to use up the energy during this period. So they discourage persons now from using additional electricity during this time because this is where it is most expensive. Yes. And so in hotels, and this is something, you know, I remember a maintenance guy at the hotel, when we told him this, he was out of his skin. We said, listen, all you do, get your maintenance, your ancillary staff to wash the sheet them in the mornings. So it is cheaper for you to get the ancillary staff into the hotel and let them be up using these industrial facilities to wash at 3 o'clock because they are currently on time of use. So the time of use thing that I mentioned earlier is now coming to residential customers, but it has already been in place for industrial and other customers. You with me? So if you're running a factory, if you're making bag juice, it's best you make the bag juice between 12 and 6 a.m. Right? Rather than try to do it 7 to midday. 7 to midday, sell the bag juice, but you make it from 12 to 6. All right? Yes, Mr. Hall, you have your hand up.
Yes, sir. So since that's a problem, we have excess energy during that time and we don't want the energy to waste. Why don't we build storage facilities with battery storage to store this energy, sir, and then use it to supply during peak hours?
Yeah, but remember, that can work. That can work. Remember, you're heading to management. So when you get there, we look at that investment. But the alternative is to get customers to use it. Remember, Noah, that many industrial and commercial customers have been utilizing this. What the company is now doing, I shouldn't really say the company, but through the OUR and based on their submission, what they are now encouraging is to get residential customers.
But sir, the investment would be well because think about it. The energy that is wasting during that period, long term, sir, it would pay back for itself for the batteries.
Yeah, but it is not so much a concern right now for the utility in the sense that remember, you have to always remember that even though there's no real incentive to do what you're recommending, the incentive would be when they have excess renewables. So if you have the wind peaking and the sun peaking, you can use that and build storage facilities. And as I mentioned, pump storage. So we'll go back to the original use of windmills, which was really for pumping and grinding. Yes?
Yes, sir.
But where we are now is a shift in generation or in demand habits. That's what they are encouraging. Because these units, whether or not you're using it, you're still going to pay for it anyway. But your energy charge on your bill would now change because you would have implemented time of use. And we're not going to go through the electricity bill to go through all of that, but you do have an energy charge. And that would now vary based on your time of use. So you could shift. You could, for example, if you use dishwasher, set your dishwasher to come on at 1 a.m. Set your washing machine to come on at 1 a.m. You don't have to stand up watch them, but you will get the benefit of it. All right. So let's talk quickly about this curve. So we have here the load curve. As I mentioned earlier, each of these blue steps is showing you when you add additional generation. What we have here between the demand and generation, we call it spinning reserve. And there are two types of spinning reserve. What we are showing here is what is known as hot spinning reserve. The reserve margin, or the reserve, is the margin between the demand and the available generation. So hot spinning reserve simply means that the generator is in operation, yes, and the margin or the reserve, yes, is between what is on the system and in operation and the demand. The cold reserve, however, would be what is available and can command the system in short order. So you therefore have different technologies, and this is why it will become, the faster, and I know I have to qualify that. This is power systems, everything I have to qualify. The faster a generating facility can come online, it is usually the more expensive it is. So usually you would have internal combustion engines that you can bring online quickly. So those can come online in 5 minutes. But those use diesel, much more expensive than the bunker C that we use. Now we are transitioning to using the LNG. So there are different price dynamics that are in mix. All right? So we have the demand, we have the spinning reserve, of course, we have the time, and we have the total generating capacity, which is online. All right? Any questions regarding what we have here? So you have your base load. Your base load is your minimum load that is within the system. You have your base generation, which is the minimum generation that you will have in the system. Okay. You have your spinning reserve, and we distinguish between hot and cold. Yes, Mr. Henry.
Sir, in terms of quality for the electricity, with all those in and out with the generation, which are produce a lot of transit on the line, how them plan to solve that in terms of better quality electricity?
All right, now. So that now would come back to what you would have done in your machines. Because one of the things you would have done in machines is synchronization. Agreed? I don't know if it's machines 1 or 2. Possibly it's 2.
Sorry, you're referring to paralleling?
Yes, sir.
Synchronization.
Yeah. Even will synchronize, you still can't get rid of the transient.
Yeah, but the transients, what would have caused the transients? You tell me.
And the farmer change in the steady state.
That would
especially like the renewables them now.
All right,
like,
let me deal with the transient. Because yes, you do have transients when you take out a generator, right? Or if you have a fault on the system, you're gonna have system transients, but not the type that, well, let me say it another way. If you have a fault on the generator will demand this large current, and you will make a determination as to whether or not the system or the generator will pull out from the system. Yes? But let me start from the standpoint of synchronization. You can't synchronize unless you have the same phase sequence and frequency and voltage. We agree with that, right? So bringing the generator online is not a problem. If you have a fault and you have a transient, there are different scenarios that can occur. You have the switching transient, but the transient will die out or can die out, and you remain at your original steady state. You can have a situation, however, where the transient causes changes in the system and you then start operating at a different steady state. But then you can have a situation where, based on what has happened to the generating unit, that the unit is pulled from the system because it is no longer compatible with what the system, with where the system is. But the system to that individual generator is what we refer to as a infinite bus. So its impact, the impact of individual generators, will not be as great or as significant on the system to cause major disturbances. So you have those three possibilities. Unfortunately, your syllabus don't require me to teach that, but it is something that, you know, if we have time by the end of the module, I want to get through the module content, but if we have time, I have no problem going through that with those who may be interested. All right?
Okay, sir.
All right. I am being a horrible teacher today, and may have some people I'm today, you know. But anyway, good evening, Dr. Graham. Or it's still afternoon.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Good evening.
Don't have it too hard, you know.
Now let's reflect the facts, sir.
All right. Okay, so these curves, students, is what it represent our demand curve in Jamaica. I don't remember the exact year, but I think it's still the 2001 curves that we have here. But anyway, now, why am I showing you all this? I want you to note what is circled up here. Is it those three curves? Those three curves represent Monday, Thursday, and Friday. And what do these 3 days have in common? They are all weekdays. Yes? If you note the Friday one, you saw the Friday and the Thursday one? Look at this point right here. What is happening? Look at this point right here. Anybody see anything happening there?
Yeah, that's the lowest.
Right here, so but why on a Friday and a Thursday? What do you think?
People leave and work again. So.
Exactly. People work early.
People go to work and then
people leave work early. That's the point. So on a Friday, you see what I'm saying? What happens in an economy is reflected by the demand. We skip work early Friday afternoon. Thursday, in many instances, people get paid and gone. But Monday, productivity remains. Everybody there work until 5. Now, let's look on the Saturday. You know, in terms of you can say that back here is the same for, you know, right across. All right? But look on Saturday. Saturday is the one in the middle. Why do you think that has no fallen? Look at this separation here between.
Most business places are closed.
On a Saturday?
Yes, sir.
When they say business place, what do you mean?
Offices.
Offices.
This is. But what else is it also telling us? Look at the demand. We're coming from about 450 to about 400 megawatts. What else is it telling you about our economy? Not telling you anything? Think about it, man.
A lot of things. This could also mean that people are out on the road. Well, they're not really at home.
But you said there's less economic.
In terms of the
activity.
economy, sir, it could simply mean that we are not producing as much as we ought as a nation, particularly on weekends.
You see, I like the fact that we have a man who paid attention in econ. Thank you, Mr. Freighter. That's exactly what it is saying to us. In terms of production, and you can see that. You can also see that for the Sunday. Because you still might have 1 and 2 factories opening up on the Saturday. But note, on the Sunday, we're at about 370, 375. You with me? Look on New Year's Day, we're at 350. Now, New Year's Day, which is the bottom one at the bottom, everywhere lockdown. That's how you go. So most of our demand in this country is residential. Apart from NWC, which demands power right around right throughout the day. You know, it's just basic human activity. And so students, I'm saying to us, you know, maybe I'm speaking less as a lecturer, no, I'm more as a. But I'm saying to us, you, yeah, I still have a few more years left in this thing. Yes. But the need to improve production in this country is at your feet. And don't allow them to tell you the same lie they told me. Because the lie they told me when I was growing up was that I was the future. And it took me several years to wake up and realize, but hold on, I'm no longer the future. I am the present. It requires me right now. So, you know, you mash down that lie. If anybody tell you that you're the future, rubbish. So for those who are in the group who just turned 21, rubbish, you're not the future. You're the present. We're going to have to move this little rock forward. Eh? Anyway, I'm not going to get too philosophical on you today. But I hope that, you know, we have an appreciation for load forecasting, etc. All right? There are a couple of other things that I wanted to cover this session, but I think we have you know, looked at enough, and I am way beyond my time. So I'm going to take the register, and then we can call it a day. All right? Any questions before I do so?
Yes, sir. The generator, will they come on and off automatically?
No. System control monitors what is happening on the network, and they would advise generating facilities when to come online or to come offline. Of course, in some instances, they can, you know, carry out some of these activities, but the plant managers would normally manage this aspect of the operation. Any other question? All right, so let me pause here, and then we'll take the register and I release you.